guys, and welcome to Real Food. Join me as I rank the Evil Dead films, including the new release, Evil Dead Rise. I've also got a sweet treat for you to Necronomicon on, so stay tuned.
No matter how busy you ever got, you always found time for me. And I can't believe I'm never gonna speak to you again.
In spot number 5, Evil Dead Rise 2023, directed by Lee Cronin. I wanted to like this movie more than I did, but it is just more torture porn than I don't know what do I want to say.
Swallow your soul!
I really wanted to like this movie, but it is much more of a torture porn compared to the first film in the series. It is there to make you squirm. It is a well-made movie. They build tension effectively, and there are some cool gore effects. I mean, a cheese grater against your leg. But there's one thing that turned me off from this movie from the very beginning, and that is the inclusion of children. I cannot delight in any of the gore because you have 3 small children in this movie and they look young getting tortured. It just feels so much more cruel and mean-spirited, and not what I want out of an Evil Dead movie.
Eeny, meeny, miny. You.
David. Please. Please. You have to get me out of here.
In spot number 4, Evil Dead 2013. Directed by Fede Alvarez, this movie stars Jane Levy as Maya, who escapes to a secluded cabin in the woods in an effort to kick her drug habit, and she's accompanied by her friends and her brother David for support. As she goes through withdrawal in the cabin, she becomes convinced that she smells the stench of death. And lo and behold, they find a pretty weird basement. You've got a lot of creepy knickknacks. You've got dead cats hanging from the ceiling. You've got a suspicious book wrapped in plastic. Covered in barbed wire, so of course, the logical thing to do is open it and read it. I hate it when the catalyst for a movie is unbelievable, but nevertheless, that's what happens. People get possessed and all hell breaks loose. This is a pretty well-made movie. It is dark and violent and brutal, which is pretty common for a movie made in 2013. I just happen to prefer horror movies that are a lot more campy and goofy. But there are some things I appreciate about this film. Jane Levy's performance is pretty creepy. They are trying to say something by drawing parallels between possession and addiction. And there are some pretty cool gore effects. So if that is something you're into, this movie's worth checking out.
We're gonna get you, not another piece. We nursery rhyme, like in every movie.
No, it was the woods themselves. They're alive, Ashley.
In spot number 3, The Evil Dead, released in 1981. Directed by Sam Raimi and starring Bruce Campbell as Ash, this movie Can I start again?
Yep.
Okay. Directed by Sam Raimi and starring... Oh great, here we go, okay. This film follows a group of 5 people who go to a cabin and unknowingly release demons that want to possess them. Now, in this case, unknowingly releasing demons is a little bit more believable. I mean, they go down to the basement and the Necronomicon is just lying wide open. Then they happen to stumble upon some audio tapes that the researcher made, and he's the one who utters the words, This movie is surrounded by some controversy. The infamous tree scene, now that I've seen it, is as bad as people say. But I think it's worth mentioning that Sam Raimi has said he does regret filming it in this way. It is a low-budget movie, and yes, you can tell, but my god, do they ever do an awful lot with one location, a handful of people, and a shit ton of fog machines. I think a big part of the reason this film holds up is there is so much creative shots. So much creative shots. I think a big part of the reason this movie still works is it is pure cinema. You have so many creative shots. Of course, there is the iconic demon POV cam, but you've also got a lot of really clever close-ups. You've got some interesting panning shots. The sound design in this movie also does a lot of heavy lifting. So all things considering, this movie remains a pretty decent horror film.
4 years ago, in this quiet forest, in this cozy cabin, something happened.
In spot number 2, Evil Dead 2, released in 1987. This movie is somehow both a continuation of and a remake of the first film. However, it is much more of a horror comedy compared to the first one, which is really just a straight-up horror. Speaking of comedy, Bruce Campbell's physical comedy is at its height in this movie. When his hand gets possessed, the struggle you feel him go through is real. Speaking of the hand also, it's amazing. It talks, it squeaks and grunts, and I don't get it, but it's awesome. But back to Bruce Campbell. He is really known for giving goofy performance. I actually think he's quite nuanced in this film. There is a scene in particular at the end with no dialogue, but you can just tell he is going through so many different emotions based on his performance. This movie also deserves credit because it is the origin of Ash's most iconic line.
Groovy.
You also get to see Bruce Campbell at his most handsome, so it's really fun to watch him get beat up.
Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
In an age of darkness
May God have mercy upon your souls. Something's wrong. Something's amiss.
and a time of evil,
And that leaves in spot number 1, Army of Darkness, released in 1992. Now, this movie is a far cry from the first two. We follow Ash to medieval, times. And he's got to retrieve the Necronomicon and fight an army of Deadites before he can return home. I will say it was a pretty close call between Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness for my first spot. And if you prefer straight-up horror comedy, Evil Dead 2 may be a better fit for you. But I love Army of Darkness because it has a little bit of everything. You've got horror, comedy, action, adventure, some fantasy, and of course, a little bit of romance because Bruce Campbell. Also, you've got the most skeletons ever caught on camera. I don't know if that's true, but it feels like it is, and I love skeletons, so how can I resist? You've got a skeleton army led by a skeleton marching band playing instruments made of skeleton parts, bones, you know what I mean. One of the skeletons says, "I've got a bone to pick with you."
I got a bone to pick with you.
What more do you want? Speaking of one-liners, Bruce Campbell is just full of them in this movie, and they land even better because he's in medieval times.
You know your shoelace is untied. Yo, she-bitch. Let's go. Groovy. Give me some sugar, baby.
Army of Darkness.
Now, give me some sugar, baby.